Greetings. This argumentative presentation is going to critically analyze two articles, which is an analysis of post-apartheid anti-fronting intervention by fostering mainstreaming of the South Africans into the corporate sector by Treasurer Tlaisani Matebula and Kolawule Udeku Ulasula, and exposing the use of fronting to circumvent mainstreaming of African women to managerial positions in the South African private sector by Matoka Motlego Dennis and Udeku Kolawule Ulasula. It is going to give reasons as to why we agree with the authors that fronting is wrong and the triple BEE policy is important so that it can address the economic disparities of the past with close attention to the effects of apartheid on the inequality faced in the current South African context and the using of fronting to create a false illusion that black South African women are in positions of power and power in the private sector, using counter arguments and rebuttals to support the stance.
Now we're going to look at the analysis of the stance. So the first article is essentially speaking about the laws implemented during the apartheid regime and how it still has an impact on black South Africans, like land dispositions of black people and the institutionalization of the system that controlled the economy and employed black people as cheap labor. Since these laws excluded black people from the mainstream economy, this means that most black people were living in extreme poverty. This is why the new democratic government that came into power in 1994 made it their mandate to reduce inequality between black and white people. They came up with affirmative action policies that advocated for the inclusion of black people in the mainstream economy. An example of such a policy is the Broad-Based Black Economic Empowerment Act 53 of 2003, which called for black empowerment by ownership, including control of businesses and assets, and human resource development and parity in the workplace, and indirect emancipation by preferential procurement, including the development of businesses. Issue raised in this article is fronting. Fronting is when white corporations fraudulently display black people as directors or shareholders in their company to comply with the Triple BEE Act so that they are able to qualify to receive government contracts. This is wrong because it gives a false perception that more black people are owners or shareholders. This is evident since the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund has released stats that say that South Africa is the most unequal country in the world. Now we are moving to the second article, the analysis of the second article. The second article further speaks about the problem of fronting. This is the superficial inclusion of historically disadvantaged people. Fronting only gives black people managerial positions on paper, but in reality, black people are still being discriminated against based on gender, race, and class. The people who are mostly affected by this is black South African women. Section 1 of the BEE Amendment Act consists of 3 forms of fronting, which are benefit diversion, window dressing, and the use of opportunistic intermediaries. These practices are one of the reasons that black South African women are the most poor demographic of women, and they are the least employed demographic compared to other races. According to Statistics South Africa in 2011, only about 30.8% of African women were employed compared to 56.1% of white women and 43.2% of colored women and 40.2% of Indian and Asian women. These are the requirements needed for a company to be seen to have complied with the Triple BEE regulations. These conditions are: for 1, ownership; 2, management control; 3, skills development; 4, enterprise development; 5, social economic development. Even though these conditions have been outlined, companies still use fronting because they do not actually want to put black women in roles of power. There have been various ways in which the government has tried to stop the fronting problem. One of these solutions is the Triple BEE Commission, which its job is to oversee, supervise, and promote adherence with the Triple BEE in the interest of the public. Okay, now let's move on to the counter-argument. JUSAP argues that while the Triple PE was introduced to correct apartheid-era injustices, but it has increasingly led to elitism rather than empowerment. The policy has enabled a small group of politically connected individuals to benefit disproportionately, while the broader black community, especially women and rural communities, remain economically excluded. These policies were designed to ensure that previously disadvantaged individuals could participate more fully in the economic life of the nation. However, significant constitutional and economical questions need to be addressed. As Bishop also raises concerns about the constitutional tensions created by the Triple PE policy, suggesting that the policy may unintentionally violate principles of fairness and equality. When it also raises concerns about the constitutional tensions created by the Triple PE policy, suggesting that the policy may unintentionally violate principles of fairness and equality, which then results in tokenism or elite capture. So now we move on to the rebuttal. So even though we acknowledge Yusuf's argument, but it is invalid because the Triple PE Act is constitutional because it is based on substantive equality rather than formal equality. Substantive equality refers to the discrimination of others' rights for the benefit of previously marginalized people. This is more right in the South African context to fix the inequality gap between black and white people, which was caused by the apartheid regime. Treasure Hlaisani Matebula, Kalowale Olosule Oteku argue that the Triple PE also does not lead to elitism because the Triple PE has requirements needed for a company to be seen to have complied with these conditions. These conditions are 20% ownership, 10% managerial control, and you also get points, 15 points for skill development, 20 points for 15 points for enterprise development, and 20 points for supply development, and 5 points for socio-economic development. This is how GSAP's claim are invalid. So in conclusion, this argumentative presentation successfully used the two articles to support their stance, acknowledged the counter-argument, and had a rebuttal to the counter-argument with the use of statistics and visual aid. This presentation has shown that other people view apartheid as long time ago, but it has only been over 30 years. It has only been over 30 years since its ending, and it has not been nearly enough time to fix the disparities caused by apartheid. Policies like the Triple PE are important if we are ever to reach a point whereby all races have equal access to the mainstream economy. I thank you for your time.